General Hospital. Fault lines in Port Charles. The quiet in Port Charles never lasts. It fractures along old fault lines, secrets, promises, and the fragile belief that love will steady a life that keeps shifting underfoot. This time the tremor begins with Curtis Ashford, a man who has already rebuilt himself once and is discovering that healing the body is simpler than trusting what he cannot see. What he stumbles upon isn't explosive. It's worse, a cluster of small, stubborn facts that refuse to make sense. A missed call here, a lab requisition there, a pharmacy charge that doesn't belong to any current prescription. Nothing that proves anything. Everything that suggests something. Curtis is not a man who leaps. He catalogs. He weighs. He remembers how certainty can wreck a marriage and how doubt can do it quieter. The unease sends him back through recent weeks with new eyes, noticing the rhythms that changed without announcement. Portia heading to the hospital on her day off, a stack of folded sweaters that stay folded too long, the kind of careful politeness that people use when they're hiding their fear. The discovery confuses him because it refuses to declare itself. It is, in the cruelest way, responsible. The sort of mystery that says there must be a good explanation and punishes him for not having it. While Curtis builds a private case file in his head, Jordan Ashford is assembling a different kind of puzzle across town. She has seen enough investigations to know that most truths don't present themselves as revelations, they arrive as patterns. In the drift of medical notes, discrete clinic calls, and schedule gaps, Jordan senses a pattern that points toward a pregnancy, one that touches Portia Robinson's orbit in a way that is impossible to ignore. She considers the legal and personal minefields with the same discipline she once used to track fugitives. This isn't contraband or a getaway route. It's a question about who knows what, and who has the right to know it first. Jordan understands discretion. She also understands Curtis. The years have taught her how loyalty can curdle into secrecy when the wrong thing is protected. So she hesitates on the edge of a choice that will have consequences either way. If she stays silent, she abandons Curtis to the corrosive company of his own uncertainty. If she speaks, she ignites a volatile sequence in a family that has only recently begun to breathe again. The decision isn't about policing at all. It's about stewardship, of a truth that may not be hers to carry and a man she refuses to watch drown. Portia Robinson, for her part, has practiced keeping a life together with steady hands and spare words. She knows what it is to be judged for old omissions and newer corrections. She also knows when a situation requires support from someone who does not flinch. That is how Ava Jerome enters the frame, not as a confessor, but as a strategist. Portia seeks her because Ava understands the difference between a story and a narrative. A story is what happened. A narrative is what survives it. In a crisis where medicine, marriage, and history are converging, Portia needs someone who can help her keep the narrative from eating the people she loves. Ava listens with the cool intelligence that has been earned, not gifted. She thinks in contingencies. She maps the ways information travels in Port Charles, through hospital corridors, police precincts, and the gravity field surrounding the Quartermaines, Cassadines, and anyone foolish enough to challenge either. Her counsel is simple in its ruthlessness. Control what can be controlled. Identify the first person who must hear the truth and the last person who can never be allowed to weaponize it. Anticipate the confrontation that is coming, and decide now what the end state should be. Ava is not sentimental about outcomes. She is protective of Trina's peace and wary of any disruption that might spill onto the daughter who stitched her life back together one brave decision at a time. All of this quiet plotting would be easier if not for Isaiah Gannon. He is the element that refuses to remain theoretical. Connected to Portia through professional trust and a set of shared obligations, Isaiah knows pieces of the picture that pull him into Curtis's line of sight. What he understands about discretion makes him calm, what he understands about loyalty makes him immovable. He is not an antagonist by temperament, yet he becomes one by design because the line he has drawn, what he will say, what he will not, is the line Curtis keeps pressing. Their collision is inevitable, and it does not occur in a boardroom, a squad room, or a courtroom. It happens in the narrow geography of a hospital hallway, where privacy is an illusion and decisions are made public by the simple fact of who stands where. Curtis approaches with the measured intensity of a man who wants to keep his voice low and his options open. Isaiah meets him with the steadiness of someone who refuses to be bullied by the urgency of another man's questions. There are no theatrics. No threats. Only two moral codes occupying the same space, each certain it is protecting the right person. The confrontation becomes tense because it is honest. Curtis wants clarity, not leverage. Isaiah wants boundaries, not power. The impasse leaves both men exposed for what they are, guardians of different gates. By the end of it, nothing sensational has happened, but everything essential has. Curtis learns that he cannot reach the truth by force, and Isaiah learns that silence has a cost measured in the strain on a decent man's face. They part without victory. They part with a new respect that does nothing to relieve the pressure building around them. Back at the center of it is Portia, drafting a plan with Ava that prioritizes sequence. First, choose transparency over discovery. Second, decide what can be verified so that rumor dies in the doorway. Third, anticipate the emotional blast radius and move the most vulnerable people out of it. Ava offers names and timing. She knows who will turn pain into currency and who will spend compassion like it is inexhaustible. Together they build a script that leaves as little to chance as possible, knowing chance is the one thing they cannot manage. Jordan, meanwhile, makes her choice. She imagines the conversation a dozen ways and discards each one. In the end, she returns to the only approach that has ever worked with Curtis: say the thing plainly and trust him to handle its edges. She does not bring accusations. She brings context, a quiet accounting of the signs any trained observer would see. She does not tell him how to feel, or what to do, or how quickly to do it. She gives him the respect of letting the information land where it must. There is relief in finally naming what has been humming at the margins. There is also the grief of knowing how fragile trust can be when it is asked to bear new weight. What follows is not a cascade of revelations but a series of controlled detonations. Curtis reevaluates the last several weeks through the lens Jordan provided and recognizes the places where fear disguised itself as efficiency. Portia confronts the reality that protecting someone from pain often manufactures a more complicated kind. Lsaiah assesses his role and refuses to let righteous intent become an alibi for unnecessary harm. Ava keeps the focus trained on outcomes, reminding everyone that, in Port Charles, truth untended becomes rumor, and rumor unattended becomes war. The question that animates all of them is not only whether a pregnancy exists, but what that fact would mean in a household still recovering from older seismic events. Would it reopen the oldest wound between Curtis and Portia, the one named after a paternity secret that took too long to surface? Would it recast recent acts of kindness as tactical moves and thereby poison them retroactively? Or could it, perversely, become the catalyst for a healthier kind of honesty, one that stops apologizing for the past and starts negotiating a future that is more realistic than romantic? Curtis is aware that every choice from here will be read as judgment. If he demands answers immediately, he is the impatient husband who learned nothing from the last time trust failed. If he waits, he is the naive man inviting the same history to repeat itself. The only way forward is to make a distinction most couples never have to articulate: the difference between privacy and secrecy. Privacy protects dignity. Secrecy protects lies. He resolves to fight for the first and refuse the second, even if that means making space for uncomfortable truths that rearrange the calendar, the house, and the heart. Portia, guided by Ava's hard-earned pragmatism, begins to frame the disclosure not as a confession but as an alignment. She has been living in two atmospheres, the one where medicine demands precision and the one where love tolerates mess. The air has grown thin. She decides that nobody gets to suffocate. Her reach for help was not weakness, it was triage. And while she cannot control reactions, she can control the order in which they encounter the facts. That is the difference between chaos and crisis management, between a family that fractures and a family that, however imperfectly, adapts. Lsaiah's role sharpens too. He will not be the reason a marriage collapses, nor will he be the shield behind which avoidable damage hides. His boundary is not cruelty, it is the discipline that keeps sensitive information from becoming gossip dressed as concern. The confrontation with Curtis does not make him an enemy, it makes him a witness to the burden of being a decent man in a complicated town. He takes no satisfaction in being right. He will settle for being careful. Jordan, after the disclosure, returns to her own life with the lingering ache that comes from making the necessary choice rather than the She knows she has pushed a slow-moving drama into its next act and that people will assign motives to her decision that have nothing to do with the truth. That is the price of acting with clarity in a place where ambiguity feels safer. She will pay it. She has paid more for less. By the end of the week, the map of Port Charles looks different even though no one has moved. Conversations that once wandered now walk a straight line. Apologies are measured against actions rather than feelings. Plans are drafted with contingencies that would make a corporate attorney proud. And still, the central uncertainty remains, not as a cliffhanger but as a sober recognition that families are collections of flawed people doing their best with incomplete information. The tension ahead will not be resolved by spectacle. It will be decided in living rooms and hospital lounges, in the half minutes before a door opens and the half minutes after a door closes, in the way a hand finds another and does not let go even when the news is difficult. Will Curtis choose patience without surrendering self-respect? Will Portia choose radical honesty without punishing herself for not being able to manage every variable? Will Jordan be allowed to exist in the gray without being accused of playing both sides? Will Isaiah's boundary hold when the town's appetite for answers grows unkind? Port Charles has never rewarded the shortcut. It punishes the lie that overpromises and the truth that arrives too late. What it sometimes offers, on its better days, is a path through, a way for people to be braver than their mistakes and gentler than their fears. Curtis's confusing discovery was not a trap, it was an invitation to stop pretending that peace is the absence of questions. Peace, if they can earn it, will be learning to ask those questions out loud, in daylight, together.